Amber and the Talon Dagger. Claire walks out the cafe door towards the park with a million things on her mind. Jake, the familiarity, the electric shock that ran through them when he touched her. Then the weird reaction of Susan earlier sent shivers down her spine. She then remembers the troubled look that crossed Jake's face. She wonders what it was that he was thinking about at the moment. She gets the feeling that it's something similar to her encounter with Susan, but she can't be sure. Claire reaches the entrance of the park by the time all these thoughts subside. She pauses at the entrance and looks around the park. The sun had disappeared behind the thick grey clouds. The whole scene makes the pathway she takes regularly seem very eerie. Suddenly she regrets turning down the lift from Jake. She looks around wearily, takes a breath and starts walking into the park, which is about a block's walk, with multiple small paths leading in different directions off the main path, some to resting benches and some to a small pond for the public to enjoy. As Claire walks down the main path, she notices that there are still people around and feels slightly reassured, knowing she's not alone. As she walks on, she sees an old man sitting on a bench, not far ahead. Getting closer, her stomach starts to churn. A shiver runs down her spine. Something doesn't feel quite right about this area of the park. Claire slows her pace and takes light steps as if trying to not make a sound. At that moment, the old man that was staring at the ground starts to lift his head very slowly until his cold red-brown eyes meet hers, the same tint of bright crimson she'd seen in Susan's eyes earlier. Claire is stopped dead in her tracks. Her heart is pounding. She forces a fake smile at the old man. He continues to sit still, unmoving and staring at Claire. She then realizes that she should just get out of there as soon as she can and begins to walk again, but a lot faster this time. The faster she gets away from this old man, the better. He's watching her every move as she walks past him. She continues to keep a fast pace. Then something catches her eye between the trees. She turns to look. It's a very beautiful woman about the same age as herself. She has long, wavy, dark brown hair and is wearing tight-fitting leggings, a boho top secured by a black waistcoat. The thing that Claire notices the most about her is her unique eye color. It's beautiful, glowing amber. The woman is looking directly at Claire. The look in her eyes is guarded, but Claire can see something is deeply concerning this woman. Claire can also see a hint of sorrow in her eyes as well. Then in an instant the woman disappears behind a tree. Claire continues to walk at a fast pace when something compels her to look back at the bench. Panic rises in her throat so violently that she almost gags. The old man is gone. She turns to jog out of the park only to find the old man standing directly in front of her. She screams and jumps back. He grabs her wrist, still staring at her with the same empty, unfeeling look. He then begins to return the smile she'd given him a minute ago. His eyes turn a crimson red, so dark they are almost black. Claire screams again, wanting to look around for help, but she can't take her eyes off the horror before her. She tries to pull her wrist from his grip, but he's too strong. He then wraps his other hand around her neck and starts squeezing. Claire can't breathe. She tries with all her might to pry loose with her free hand, but to no avail. I'm going to die here, she thinks, panic rushing throughout her body. Just then a shiny, talon-shaped metal blade pierces through the front of the old man's chest, directly where his heart is. His eyes widen and he gives a short grunt as he looks down at his chest where the blood starts to run down. His grip loosens from Claire's throat and wrist. She pulls free and collapses, coughing. The old man stumbles a little, then seems to disintegrate into ash. For a few seconds she sees the same woman holding the talon-like blade. Who the hell are you? What was he and why was he trying to kill me? Claire burst out in question. The young woman simply looks at Claire and says, "Get out of here fast!" Then the woman vanishes into thin air too. The terrified, panicked Claire doesn't need to be told twice. She gets to her feet and runs to the park exit as fast as she can. She doesn't even look back. Claire reaches Roxy's work just as she's locking the front door. Roxy turns to joke with Claire about being late because of a date when she sees the expression on her face. She turns serious. "Claire? What's wrong? What happened?" She asks, extremely worried. Claire is out of breath from running, as well as from the shock of what just happened. Her face is pale white and she's shaking. Not wanting to sound crazy, Claire responds, "Someone just tried to mug me in the park, but I managed to get away." Roxy gasps and says, "Oh my God, Claire, are you alright? Are you hurt? We should call the police." No, shouts Claire a little louder than she meant to. She then tries to sound a little calmer. No, it's okay, I'm fine, I'm not hurt. Claire smiles weakly at Roxy, hoping it's convincing. Roxy still looks suspiciously worried about Claire, but agrees not to call the police. Claire, you can come sleep at my place. My sister's out of town. We can just stop at your apartment and fetch a few things, Roxy insists with a harshness to her tone, letting Claire know she mustn't argue with her decision. Claire sits quietly in the front seat of Roxy's car and breathes a small sigh of relief. She doesn't want to be alone tonight anyway. Roxy starts the car and makes her way to Claire's apartment. Claire stares out the window, watching traffic pass, trying to forget what she's just been through. The atmosphere is serious, and it's clear Roxy is worried about Claire. They reach her apartment in a few minutes. Claire robotically opens the door to get out. Roxy gets out too and puts her arm around her shoulders. She gives Claire a reassuring but worried smile and says, "Come on, let's get your stuff quickly. Jimmy will be excited to see you at my place. You haven't slept over there in ages." Claire smiles genuinely this time and feels a little more at ease. They make their way up the stairs to her apartment on the second floor. They reach the door. She gets her keys out, unlocks the door and enters quickly. She just wants to get her things and go. She grabs an overnight bag, throws pajamas in, as well as work clothes for the next day. She then quickly makes her way to the bathroom to get her toothbrush and other toiletries. Roxy had been waiting for Claire in her bedroom, but suddenly speaks behind her. "Are you ready?" Claire jumps. Roxy looks at her in full concern. "Are you sure you're okay? You're not hurt or anything?" Roxy asks. "I'm sure, just a bit shaken up," replies Claire. Roxy isn't completely convinced but drops the subject. Claire gets the rest of her things and they're on their way out. Claire locks the front door, turns the handle to make sure it's locked, and they make their way back to the car. Roxy is beside Claire with her every move, as if she's worried someone's going to pass by and steal her. Claire smiles to herself and is glad to have a friend like her at times like these. They're back in the car on their way to Roxy's apartment. Claire finds herself watching the traffic again to distract herself from her nerves. A few minutes pass and they're outside Roxy's apartment building. Roxy turns to look at Claire and says firmly, "Stay." She gets out and goes around to Claire's door. She opens it and gestures to Claire to get out now, that the coast is clear. Claire can't help but laugh. She grabs her bag and gets out. Claire thanks her as they arrive at Roxy's apartment. Roxy's father was a very close friend of the apartment building owner and landlord when he was alive. This is how she and her sister got permission to keep Jimmy there. Plus they're on the ground floor, so there's a back garden for him to run around in. Jimmy hears Roxy's key in the front door and he starts barking and howling in excitement, hearing that his owner is back. Roxy swings the door open and he's standing in front of them with his huge clumsy tail wagging so ferociously, Claire's convinced he could knock someone off their feet with that tail if he were excited enough. He barks 3 times in greeting, with the last one turning into a howl. "Hello, my big clumsy goofball." Roxy greets him excitedly in a high-pitched voice and rubs his head, causing his ears to flap back and forth. Claire pats Jimmy absent-mindedly as she passes him. She makes her way to the living room area where she puts her bag down and sits carefully on the couch. Jimmy waddles into the lounge and plonks himself at her feet. Roxy appears in the doorway. "So, what can I get you? Coffee? Hot cocoa? Rum?" she asks Claire. Claire laughs lightly. "Hot cocoa would be great, thanks, Roxy." Roxy smiles and disappears into the kitchen. Claire looks down at Jimmy, who's looking up at her with his head resting on his front paws, waiting for her to notice him. Claire laughs and says, "Yeah, you're just one big overgrown puppy, aren't you, Jimmy?" He wags his giant clumsy tail and rolls onto his back, wanting a belly rub. Claire lowers her hand and scratches his belly, laughing affectionately at the innocence of this gentle giant. 5 minutes later, Roxy returns with hot cocoa. She sits down next to Claire, handing her the hot cocoa. Roxy then picks up the remote and turns the TV on. "So, give me some good news. How was your date with Jake?" asks Roxy, turning her attention to Claire. Claire had completely forgotten that her date had happened today, given the later circumstances. Claire smiles, remembering the date. "Good, really good. He's so familiar, and we get along so well," answers Claire. "So, did you kiss him?" asks Roxy excitedly. "No," answers Claire, and Roxy seems disappointed. "But something strange happened. He squeezed my hand when he was saying goodbye, and when he touched my hand, it felt like a bolt of energy shot through my hand and up my arm," says Claire. Roxy's eyes were becoming wider with excitement and intrigue. She loves hearing about Claire's love life. Claire continues, "And I know he felt it too, because he pulled his hand away and stepped back. Then he asked me if I felt that. It was really strange. And afterwards my hand wouldn't stop tingling," said Claire thoughtfully. Roxy grins and says, "Well, it seems to me that the spark between you guys is literal," Claire laughs. "So when are you going to see him again?" "I'm not sure. Probably this weekend at the horse rescue," replies Claire. This answer seems to satisfy Roxy because she pries no further. They watch TV for half an hour in silence. Then Roxy speaks. "So, I'm thinking for old time's sake, I'll bring my mattress here to the lounge and we can fall asleep talking nonsense and watching movies. What say you?" She exaggerates the last 3 words in a British accent. Claire laughs and responds in a British accent. "I do believe we have a plan." They both get up like 2 excited teenagers at a sleepover and proceed to lug Roxy's double mattress to the living room. Jimmy stands up and wags his tail, sensing the excitement. They grab the mattress, push it to the living room and plonk it on the floor. Claire then goes to shower and change into her pajamas. Roxy fetches the rest of the bedding and waits for Claire to finish in the bathroom. 15 minutes later, Claire returns. Roxy then goes to shower and change. When she returns, Claire is fast asleep. Roxy smiles and lets her friend sleep off the stressful events of the day. Claire dreams so vividly. The sun is shining brightly outside on a lovely spring day. Claire's rushing outside excitedly to meet Jake under the willow tree, over the hill of her house. It's their secret meeting place. No one knows of their feelings for each other. As she's making her way to the hill, her mother calls her from the doorway. "Catherine, where are you off to?" Claire turns quickly to her mother, hiding her excitement. "I'm just going for a walk, Mother. I just need some fresh air." Her mother considers her with suspicious eyes and replies, "Well, don't walk too far and be careful." Claire smiles, nods and turns towards the hill. She walks with calculated slow steps so as not to seem in a hurry. She then hears the front door close behind her. She peers backwards, sees the coast is clear, and she runs up the hill and over it. There he stands under the willow tree, smiling as he sees Claire running towards him. Claire runs into Jake's arms. "I've missed you so much, James," she says lovingly. "I've missed you too, my Catherine," he replies, smiling and staring into her eyes. "I wish we didn't have to hide," he replies. Claire is looking up into his eyes and suddenly the scenery starts to change. She takes a step back away from him and watches everything change. The skies darken to a greyish black. Thunder rolls and lightning strikes here and there. Jake, or James as he was called here, disappears before her eyes. The willow tree keeps appearing and disappearing like a flickering light as a new roll of sinister memories unravel and overlap one another, as well as the initial memory. She suddenly sees the old man from the park. He's standing right in front of her, smiling his evil red-eyed smile. She's breathing hard and looking around frantically, trying to make sense of everything. Honestly, she just wants to go away. She then sees the old cabin come into focus. She sees Jake, known as James here, run inside. "What is he running from?" she calls out to him, but he can't hear her. Suddenly 3 people appear with the same crimson eyes as the old man. "No!" Claire screams. "Leave him alone!" No one hears her. They break the door open. Jake tries to fend them off, but he's no match. The one takes out a knife and stabs him in the stomach. He drops to his knees as Claire watches in horror. They leave him there, then set the house on fire to make sure his survival is impossible. The burning house fades and then disappears. Suddenly the woman from the park is standing in front of her. Claire feels empty. Her love is gone. The woman says her name is Amber. She's a phoenix and needs to protect her from the crimson-eyed beings who are from another realm. Claire looks into her eyes in disbelief. The glowing amber of them looks a little sorrowful, but urgent. Amber grabs Claire's hand and she feels as if she's in a swirling cloud full of colours. Then it fades as the pulse slows and all she can think of is her James, her future Jake. Claire's woken up by Roxy shaking and calling her name. For a moment she doesn't recognise Roxy and she jumps up, moving away from her. "Claire, relax, it was just a dream," Roxy shouts, completely shaken by Claire's reaction. Claire's drenched in sweat. Her heart is racing and adrenaline is pumping through her veins. Her breathing is also racing as she tries to shake a horrible dream that felt so real. "Claire, who is James?" asks Roxy, confused and worried. Claire brushes her sweat-drenched hair out of her face and puts her head in her hands, trying to stop it from spinning, and takes a deep breath, trying to calm down. It's Jake, answers Claire. No, you were shouting James, answers Roxy matter-of-factly. It's Jake, answers Claire again. James is Jake. Roxy thinks for a moment, then says, I don't follow. Claire looks up at Roxy, still a little distressed, but mostly calmed down. I don't know, Rox. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, answers Claire. She closes her eyes and lets her mind run through the dream again. The secret love, the brightness of the day. Then how everything turned dark. The crimson-eyed people that murdered Jake, or James as he was known in his past. The house on fire, and finally the young, beautiful woman with the glowing amber eyes that looked so sorrowful. And then the swirling tunnel. Amber. Her name is Amber. Claire opened her eyes again with realization and a sort of urgent panic. She looks at Roxy with huge eyes, and the question she asks even leaves Roxy a little shaken up by the convincing seriousness of her tone. Given everything that appeared in my dream and the vividness of it all, the sinister experience I had in the park, which wasn't a mugging, I lied, and the way Jake feels so familiar. Do you think it's a possibility that past lives could be real?